There's some amazing things happening, my friends. This is Tony. Hope you're all doing well. We're going to get into a number of things in this video. We're going to talk about how I believe we're seeing a number of things happening around us that shows that we're entering into a new time, my friends. Then we have this here, my friends, them opening the door, and they called it a portal when they did this service, whatever you want to call it, ritual, for opening the door in the Notre Dame Cathedral. And actually what I'm thinking is the devil is still trying to somehow salvage his plans for this new Ona. We're entering into this 500 years. He doesn't want to admit defeat. The fact that it's even opening in of itself is a defeat for the devil, but he's still trying, for whatever reason, to do these strange things like this, my friends. This is kind of the way I look at it. A lot of people don't understand this. They think that this is just part of the plan or whatever, but that's not what's really going on here, my friends. If it was, they wouldn't be opening it at all. It would be gone. And I've been talking about this for months and months and months, and now we're seeing the evidence of it. And I'm going to put it all together in this video, and I'm also going to talk about this Billy Carson guy, what happened with that whole thing. And I'm also going to talk about the Notre Dame Cathedral, how this is tied into it as well. It's kind of amazing when you start seeing this from a bird's eye view. You start to really see the big picture. Now, let's start with this Billy Carson guy. Actually, I wanted to start with this first. You want to see God moving? Let me show you. Here you go. Earliest Jesus is God inscription found. Deemed greatest discovery since the Dead Sea Scrolls. And by the way, the Dead Sea Scrolls have a lot of interesting things to say as well that people are just simply not aware of. I might get into a little bit at the tail end of this. But the fact is, this is actually one of the things that goes directly against what Billy Carson would say. He would say, and actually, matter of fact, his most recent response to this whole debate debacle that he recently had was he went on a tirade on how he was tricked into debating and that it was supposed to be just a spiritual conversation. And he didn't expect it to be a debate whatsoever, even though he brought on a scholar. Why would you bring on a scholar to have some sort of spiritual conversation? He's clearly going to be talking about evidence and things you've said. I mean, it's not rocket science. But of course, that's what he was claiming. And he was also going through his standard understanding of church history, talking about the Council of Nicaea and how Emperor Constantine is the one who declared him God. And of course, there was no evidence before this. I mean, this is already recently debunked by this archaeological discovery, this inscription that shows that even in the 1st century, there were texts on artifacts saying Jesus is God. I mean, it didn't say it exactly like that, but it was basically what it was saying. So you have this evidence already showing that all these atheists, all these guys that are in the, I guess you would say, New Age, which is really, we're going to get to that term, this phrase at the end of this video, because it actually ties into, we're actually entering into a new Ona. And I'm going to show the evidence. This is what the Notre Dame Cathedral, this is what all the stuff, I'm going to tie it all together, put a little bow on top. I'm joking. That sounds cringe, but I'm going to show how all this stuff goes together. And I've been predicting this for months that not predicting. I've been saying for months, saying for months we're entering into a new age or a new Ona, 500 years. And I go through and I show how the book of Esther actually shows this. And I actually don't even have all the stuff open, but if you follow my channel, I've probably covered this 10 times. But if you haven't followed my channel, then you would have no clue what I'm talking about. But we have the same exact solar eclipse schedule as there was during 480 BC in the year 2024. And I show how she was, again, it comes back to the term Ona, which comes from the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Dead Sea Scrolls talk about there being these 500-year periods of time when, of course, you probably heard this phrase before, the God of this world, right? The God of this world's the devil, right? According to Scripture. The word world is aeon, or eon in English. It means age, the God of this age. And of course, the age when they wrote the New Testament was after 0 AD, obviously. It'd probably be like, 70, 80 AD or whatever it was when they wrote these texts. It was the time of the Red Dragon, 0 to 500 AD. And I go through, in numerous videos, I've shown how you can actually know what the god of this age was from about 1000 BC up till now. And we're actually been under the Red Dragon for 500 years, since King Henry VII. That's why things have been really kind of backwards. You might have noticed things seemed a little dark, like you're in the Twilight Zone all the time. Not good, right? That's because we're in the age of the dragon, just like the time of 0 AD to 500 AD. Okay, and the church went through a lot of trouble on that time frame. Lots of, prophets and et cetera, disciples expiring, right? Because that was the time of the Red Dragon. Of course, 500 BC to 0 AD was the time of the White Dragon. That was because of Esther and her saving Israel. And so I get into that in my other videos. And now it's a rabbit trail, but getting back to what I was saying, we have Billy Carson claiming that essentially Jesus was declared, of course, God during the time of Constantine, which, of course, as you can see via archaeological find, that's not the case because we have evidence way before then. And that's the same with the whole Dead Sea Scrolls. The Dead Sea Scrolls prove that the Septuagint is actually a legitimate translation, which, of course, there was a number of people in the church trying to argue is not worth much. And that was basically validated as a result of the Dead Sea Scrolls. It also showed that the Hebrew Masoretic had modifications to it, which is, of course, what these early church fathers said. But a lot of people don't listen to them. Justin the Martyr, Tertullian, et cetera, et cetera. But getting over to Billy Carson here, he had a debate, of course, recently. I'm sure you've seen this. We're going to get into what he recently did, what he said on Joe Rogan, and how Joe Rogan reacted to it. Let me just show you this first for those who've not. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have already seen it, but we'll just play real quick some of the clips from this debate where he basically exceptionally lost, okay?
In my videos, and if you listen to the podcast, the statement is according to the Sinai Bible, Jesus wasn't crucified in that Bible. And that Bible predates the King James Version of the Bible. And the
very fact that he said it that way shows he doesn't really know a ton, because obviously the King James is from 1611. Codex Sinaiticus is clearly from, I think, the 4th century or some way before that. And it's an actual, what you would call a manuscript. King James is not considered a manuscript. It's a translation. So, of course, he goes into some talking points, and then he's basically referencing the Sinai Bible, which is Codex Sinaiticus, as this scholar here says. I'm assuming from what I can tell, he's this Christian scholar. Yeah, he's a scholar, and he goes into it and basically shows how he doesn't know what he's talking about. Check this out.
When you say the Sinai Bible, what are you referring to specifically?
It's the biblical text that was written. It made it into you can actually look it up on Amazon. It's a Bible called, I have a version at home. It's called the Sinai Bible, right, from Mount Sinai. I'm assuming that's the mountain.
From Mount Sinai. Okay, dude. Oh my goodness. Just the way he says it, it's like he doesn't exactly know what he's talking about. But let's just keep playing here.
They're referencing there, but they put together their own version of the biblical text prior to the King James Version being put out.
Sure. So when you refer to the Sinai Bible, would you be referring to Codex Sinaiticus? Like the codex that comes... Okay.
So the reason why Wes is asking him this is because there's no such thing as the Sinai Bible, apart from a title that someone on...
Yeah, so someone on Amazon put the name Sinai in comparative something. Codex Sinaiticus. So what's interesting about this, of course, is he goes and shows how it actually does have the crucifixion in Codex Sinaiticus, and that Wes Huff, I believe the scholar's name is Wes Huff, he goes and shows a copy of it that he has in his own library, and it literally says it says the crucifixion in it. So he's just completely wrong. He's just completely wrong. But he's been going on numerous shows. Like, he's been on Joe Rogan 6 months ago. And matter of fact, I wanted to show you this face. This was after Billy Carson said to him a number of strange things, okay? And he was talking about 7 tablets of creation. There was information copied from those tablets right into the Old Testament. And you can see here, Joe Rogan, it's hard to read Joe Rogan's face sometimes, but I think you can actually tell. He goes, like that. And you look at his face and you can tell he doesn't believe him, even though he's trying to hide it. Because Joe Rogan usually is trying to hide that he doesn't believe you, because he just has people on. He interviews them. He doesn't, he's usually very nice and very generous, and he never really pushes back on anything anybody ever says on his show too much. Sometimes in a later episode, he'll start talking, maybe trash about the person that he just had on. But while the person's on the show, he's very cordial. He doesn't, try to ruffle anybody's feathers usually. Sometimes he does. He's done it a few times. But you could tell if you look at his face in this clip, it's around the 9:48 mark in the 2 hour and 43 minute podcast. You can already tell he's not believing him. Okay. You can just tell he's not believing what he's saying. Although he's like open, you can tell he's open-minded. He's like, I don't believe it, but okay, maybe I don't know what I'm talking. Maybe I don't know. Right. That's kind of his face there. And so what's interesting about this is I do think that there are things that were copied and put into the Old Testament in the Pentateuch. Like for instance, the book of Noah, or even the book of Jubilees. I believe the book of Jubilees and Genesis, they have the very verbatim same text. And I believe they probably got them from the same source, because the book of Jubilees actually has additional lines. So like if there's like there's 9 lines around Genesis 6 that match the book of Jubilees, and actually in the book of Jubilees it has 12 lines. It has 3 extra lines. So it's like, obviously they got it from the same source, and this one actually has an additional 3 lines. Either somehow they got the same source, right? Somewhere along. And of course, I believe Genesis is a very highly compact book with probably numerous sources being cited in it from books that he had in his possession when Moses had in his possession when he was trying to create the book, right? So we don't have those books today, probably. I mean, we have fragments of the book of Noah. We don't have the book, right? And even with the Dead Sea Scrolls, we have numerous books in the Dead Sea Scrolls we don't have the full entire book of either. So there's numerous books in the past that just don't exist, or maybe they're in the Vatican Library. You don't know where they're at. I guess theoretically, maybe there's a few in the Vatican Library because we can't go and look at it, right? Or there could be, we just don't have them anymore, right? So, but if you look at Genesis, you have all these higher critics that say, oh, there's different writers of Genesis. And they'll say author A, author B. I think that's all representing some of these texts that were, like I said, the book of Noah or some other book that was referenced and used in Genesis. And that's why it looks like it's different authors. But the one he references here, the 7 tablets of creation, I've never heard of that one. He also mentioned some other one I've never heard of, a translation of Una Elish, whatever that is. And I've seen numerous books. I don't know. I don't think I know. I've never seen that one. So at any rate, when he had this debate with West here, he basically freaked out afterwards. Okay. Because it was made very clear he didn't know what he was talking about. Okay. Because he was talking about the Sinai Bible, and he said it didn't have the crucifixion in it when it did. So after he realized how badly he did in this talk, at 2:30 a.m., he went to one of the producers' home to ask them to essentially not release the footage, because obviously he didn't do too well on it. And you can see in his response that he was not very happy about what happened, because he's even sued one of his longtime friends, apparently, for being part of this. He sued literally a friend of 12 years. I think it was 12 years. Let me check here. It was one of his friends. I'll actually play the clip too. 10 years. Ex-friend from 10 years. For 10 years, he was his friend. And I think we have it right here. Let me play the clip.
Billy's trying to sue me. And he's trying to sue me because I got him on a podcast with a real historian who debunked all his BS in terms of Christianity.
So, of course, one of his former friends is being sued by him. But he's also going after people that are listing the full debates, because apparently, he's sending cease and desist to numerous people, saying he's going to sue them if they don't remove the video. I don't know if he's doing any copyright claims or not. This one, video unavailable. The video has been removed by Uploader. But apparently he's sending out cease and desist, particularly to the guy that debated him, Wes Huff is his name. He has a channel here on YouTube. Go check him out. And I referenced earlier, I was referencing What Do You Meme, playing a clip from his channel, but basically says here to cease and desist, or if he doesn't provide evidence that he cease and desists, that he will sue him. I don't think this would hold up in court. I don't think at all, if I understand correctly, because, I mean, the guy agreed to the debate. He agreed to being recorded. You can't, like, after the fact, change your mind after it's already done. I don't think you can do that. I'm pretty sure you can't. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know. But I'm pretty sure you can't do that. At any rate, so of course, after the debate and the debacle, he basically said, he's making all these excuses on how he was basically, tricked into this debate, and then he thought it was just going to be a spiritual kumbaya conversation. I don't know what he was thinking. But of course, this guy is out there saying that Jesus could be, of course, an alien, and then he also says that the church made him into a god, and all these things, right? It's sort of this new, age type of mentality. And again, there's that phrase, New Age, right? So what I was trying to say earlier is that we are actually entering into a new Ona. Of course, I think the devil personally wanted 1,000 years. So he had 500 years since King Henry VII until now, based on my research. And again, I don't have all that open. You might want to go check out some of my previous videos because I've talked about this numerous times. And those who watch my channel regularly are like, oh, please don't do it again, right? I'm sure. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe someone will like it. But I mean, like I said, every 500 years, it changes hands, potentially. The last time we had the white dragon was for 1,000 years, 500 AD to 1500 AD. And you can see, if you look into King Arthur and Merlin, the magician, which is around 500 AD, he had a dream about two dragons fighting, a white dragon and a red dragon. The red dragon was Wales. The white dragon was the Saxons. The Saxons defeat Wales. And then it said it would lead to a kingdom for 1,000 years, which is exactly what happened. You had the Middle Ages. But then after that, you had King Henry VII, and he came along, and one of the first things he did, and I could show you this real quick because his crest is a dragon and a dog. So if you look at King Henry VI, let me show you this. Okay, here we go. King Henry the Seventh. So let's go back and let's show you King Henry. Let's show you King Henry the Sixth. Or am I on the right one? Am I at the wrong one? Yeah, this is King Henry VII. This is King Henry VII here. So you can see here, King Henry VII had a red dragon and a white dog. If you go back to King Henry VI, you'll see that he had two white dragons. So basically, King Henry VI was under the last part of the white dragons, 500 years, and then the red dragon started at King Henry VII. He was well known for destroying a lot of old world buildings from the medieval times. And that's something I've covered on this channel numerous times about the old world buildings. Very interestingly, we just had an old world building get reopened. We had the Notre Dame Cathedral just have its first church service this Sunday in many, many years. You remember it had a fire there, right? Now, of course, if you don't follow this topic, you're going to be like, what does this have to do with anything? But if you do follow this topic about old world buildings, you know that during the last 500 years, they've been destroying all these medieval buildings, particularly at the world fairs. And we're going to get into something about the world fairs in a second here. But this building, they would not allow it to reopen. And of course, if you read all these stories from the last few hundred years in newspaper clippings and various things in the past, a lot of these old world buildings, they just mysteriously catch on fire. And a lot of them are made out of brick. So it's like kind of weird. How do they catch on fire? But they mysteriously catch on fire. And this one also mysteriously caught on fire. Notre Dame Cathedral, like all the rest before it. I mean, it's really kind of interesting looking into this topic. You have even, at any rate, so you have all these old world buildings that were even in America too, around the time of the world fairs. And a lot of those mysteriously were destroyed as well. But what's interesting is this one reopened, which I think is an indication, is sort of a what I would call sign that we are entering into, of course, a new Ona. And I've talked about all these other things, which I have had numerous things to point out in the past. I've shown how we have the exact same solar eclipse cycle as 480 BC in 2024 AD. Again, 480 BC was the time of the book of Esther, when Esther saved Israel, and it went from the red dragon to the white dragon. I believe we just went from the red dragon to the white dragon this year. And this, I think, is the first one of the many signs. We actually have another one that's quite amazing as well. Let me show you that. Where is that at? Here we go. We have our president-elect saying that we're going to have a year-long World Fair in America, and that he's going to have new buildings built to show America's innovation. So I believe this is sort of another instance showing we're entering into a new Ona. Again, this concept of an Ona is a 500-year period of time that was referenced in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It was also referenced to the concept of Mordecai's dream, which was the final chapter of the book of Esther that was removed and put in the Apocrypha. It talks about two dragons vying, of course, for power over the world. And, of course, this mirrors the dream of Merlin the magician about two dragons around 500 AD. This one here is 500 BC, where they went from the red dragon. So the red dragon was 1000 BC to 500 BC. 500 BC to 0 AD was the white dragon because of Esther saving Israel. And they also have the exact same solar season as we do this year. 480 BC, the exact same solar eclipse season on the day as 2024. So we have the same sort of cycle as they did during the book of Esther. In the book of Esther, they went from the red dragon to the white dragon. And during the time of Merlin the magician, 500 AD, 1,000 years later, they went from the white dragon, or no, I'm sorry, they went from the red dragon to the white dragon. Also, because 500 0 AD to 500 AD was the red dragon. That's why it says in Scripture, the God of this age, or the God of this world, and that was written, Scripture, New Testament is written around 70 AD or something, which is between 0 and 500 AD. The God of that age would be the devil, the red dragon. So it went from the red dragon, the God of that age, to the white dragon, the God of the medieval times, meaning the white dragon being 1,000 years. And when I say God, I'm referring to the God. We're talking King of Kings God, Jesus. We're talking about him being over the Middle Ages. That's kind of the idea. So 1,000-year millennial, of course, kingdom. Then after that, in Revelation, it talks about the devil being let out for a short time, which is the red dragon. We've been under that since King Henry VII, which I believe we just exited that. And that's why we're seeing these interesting things like Notre Dame Cathedral being opened, 47 talking about having these world fairs again and building new buildings. And I believe also we're seeing that with finds like this, showing evidence that Jesus was, of course, God in the first century and believed to be in the first century God. Also, you have people like Billy Carson losing in amazing ways on debates, showing that their ideas are completely incorrect, because he was also saying that it was created in 325 AD under Emperor Constantine. And of course, he says a lot of other things as well when he's on Joe Rogan. Again, I don't believe Joe Rogan really believed him, from what I could tell. Maybe he was open-minded to it, but I don't think he believed it. The fact is, though, he can't take back what's happened here. Billy Carson, you lost, bro, and you're only making it worse by threatening to sue people, sending cease and desists, ignoring the fact that you lost and just saying, doubling down like, oh, I'm right and you're wrong. And comparing the King James to Codex Sinaiticus is just ridiculous, because one's Greek from the 4th century and the other one's English from the 17th century. Right? Not even, it's just what? Like, it makes no sense whatsoever. We also have some other interesting things. So again, I've talked about this numerous times on my channel, that we're going to see false leadership in the church fall right now and crumble. And we're going to see good leadership rise up in the church and also throughout the world, in the GOV, in entertainment, in education. I believe you're going to see a change. Hollywood's no longer going to be weird, right? Or bad. It's going to become something to where it's going to completely change. Maybe it won't even be over there anymore. Maybe it'll be called from a different name now, right? You see what I'm getting at? I believe we're going to see a huge change in the upcoming years or decade of things going in a positive direction. I believe that's what's going to happen. We also had, of course, a number of things regarding the Pope. I believe the Pope is one of the bad leadership, okay? What's interesting about him is he's done numerous things of recent that are very, very, what I call not good, okay? Let's put it that way. Pope Francis inaugurates nativity scene in Vatican showing the baby, the King of Kings, on a, I don't even know how to say this word, basically some sort of scarf used, kaifa? Is that how you say it? Kaifa? A scarf used in by Muslims, basically. So you put a scarf used commonly in the Middle East by a completely different faith underneath the baby. Does that make any sense to you, friends? It makes no sense to me. Of course, he also said something absolutely, what do we call it? Evil? Is that the right word? I don't know. Pope Francis, all religions are a path to God. Others move to correct him. Well, yeah, duh. I mean, he's supposed to be the leader of the Catholic Church. He's literally directly contradicting the most core of doctrine in the faith. He said, I'm the way, the truth, the life. No one can come to the Father but by me. That's very specific and says he's the only way. And the Pope literally contradicts the King of Kings himself saying this. And he didn't say it one time accidentally or people misunderstood it. He said it literally 4 different ways so no one could be confused what he said. He used numerous analogies. He referenced Hinduism, Taoism. He referenced other religions. He wasn't talking denominations. He's talking religions. Buddhism. He said he went into great detail to make it very clear what he was saying. This guy should not be the Pope of the Catholic Church, period. Like, end of story. That's it. Period. So why I find this very interesting is because we have a prophecy from Saint Malachi from about 1,000 years ago, and it says that we're on the last Pope right now. And this thing is highly accurate. If you've never read this, and just to give you an idea, we are on Peter the Roman. We have been on the last Pope for a while. And it says that he will pasture his sheep in many tribulations, and when these things are finished, the city of 7 hills will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge his people. The end. This is the one we're on right now. This is the last Pope, according to this prophecy. If you look at previous ones, you have Pope Benedict. Glory of the Olive was the motto written 1,000 years ago. He was of the Olivetan order. You have, this was written 1,000 years ago as well. From the labor of the sun, of the eclipse of the sun. Pope John Paul II was born on a solar eclipse. His funeral was on a solar eclipse. You got this guy, of the half moon. This was the model written 1,000 years ago about the Pope. Pope John Paul I. He was, I don't know what the right word is, became Pope. The exact day that he became Pope, and the smoke came up, from the building. They have a smoke that comes up declaring that they have a new Pope. Happened exactly on a night that was a half moon. So there's a lot of these things. I mean, every one of these mottos, very, very interesting. And we're on the last one right now. So I think we're entering into the age of the white dragon. Okay. And again, I believe the white dragon is symbolically referring to God himself. And that might also explain the serpent on the pole that Moses used, because usually when you think of a serpent on a pole, you think of something bad. Everyone in the church automatically assumes when they see a serpent, oh, bad. No matter what, bad, every time bad. And it's interesting that the King of Kings himself said, when Moses raised the staff, I'm going to be raised up myself, right? And it had a serpent on it. of all things. And the word serpent is where we get the word dragon from in the ancient Greek. I believe it was referring to the white dragon on the pole, is what I think it was referring to. Of course, the devil has taken this knowledge from the church. That's why the church has no understanding whatsoever of this concept of two dragons fighting, vying for, of course, power over the world for 500 years. That's probably why this last chapter of the book of Esther was removed, so people wouldn't understand this. It's kind of interesting. Also, Bel and the dragon was removed from Daniel. Probably has some piece component to that as well. Actually, I've already covered how it connects a little bit in a previous video. These chapters were removed for a reason, and it comes back to 2nd Esdras 4, verse 44. If you've ever read that, that's also from the apocryphal text. It literally tells you what books will remain in the OT back then. Okay, I don't know if you've ever seen this. A lot of people who follow me know what I'm talking about. 2nd Esdras 14:44. How many books are in the Old Testament? 39. Well, actually, if you look at the Hebrew version, there's only 24. There's 24 books in the Hebrew Tanakh. Let me show you what I'm talking about. 24 books in, yeah, here we go. The Hebrew Bible. Okay, there's 24 books. That equals the 39 in your modern day version, okay? Look at this. Here we have 2nd Esdras 14:44. This is when Esdras was commissioned by God to literally rewrite the entirety of all Scripture. For during the 40 days, 94 books were written. And when the 40 days were ended, the Most High spoke to me, saying, make public the 24 books. That's what the Old Testament is. That you wrote first, and let the worthy and unworthy read them. But keep the 70 books written last in order to give them to the wise among your people. So those were given last, and they are the apocryphal text, of course. That's my video. Kind of want to see what you guys think. Let me know in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.